Hello, this is Wild Lee of Wild Lee Tarot, and I'm here with your Moonday message for the week beginning April 12th, 2021. And as I tune in and feel in to the energy that is available for all of us this week, I'm really getting this sensation of allowing and surrendering to the generosity of spirit. So the cards that came forward, well, let's just dive in and see what unfolds. So the main archetype we have this week is the Page of Wands. So the sensation that I'm feeling in my channel, in my body, is that we are now aligned and stepping forward onto a new path. It's dark moon today. We are in this sensation of Aries. The moon is in Aries, the sun is in Aries. So we have this quality of the Fool also present and joining us. We begin the zodiacal wheel. We begin this new moon cycle in that same energy. And then we have here the Page of Wands, which is the seeker, the one who steps out of one's comfort zone and steps away from home, from the tribe, and is moving forward in search of what feels like truth. When the seeker tunes into not only the intellect, but also the intuition. When we tune into that element of air and allow ourselves to be moved in our lives based on what we are being drawn towards and repelled from. So we have here this energy of sanctuary within, of finding our strength in our own truth and being really honest with ourselves. And when we step into this archetype, particularly with this fiery Aries energy backing it up, it can sometimes lead to volatile situations or situations where judgment or shame occurs if we don't stay in our own lane, if we aren't focusing on our truth and then walking our path with that truth, but rather deciding what our truth is and then expecting others to also be in that same truth. And that's just not the way life works. Right? Our biggest journey is to figure ourselves out, to be with what is true within us, and then to live in alignment and integrity with that. But it is not our job to convince everyone else of what our inner knowing is. We can offer it, we can offer our wisdom, but true teachers know that we cannot convince another person. We simply offer a different experience and allow that person, based on where they are in their journey, to choose whether or not to take in that information. And that's what feels present to me right now. I'm really sensing in the collective that we are once again in a space of major divisiveness and division. I'm hearing a lot of conversations regarding taking the COVID vaccine, and there's no shame or judgment in either direction coming from me. It, in my opinion, is a very, very personal choice, and both sides have very valid points of view. And yet, there is divisiveness occurring where we can't hear one another or give one another space to feel into what our own inner truths are. And that's just one level, right? We've been coming out of 2020 and all of these different levels of truth finding. What our feelings were regarding the pandemic, what our feelings were regarding racial inequity, what our feelings were regarding the politics of whatever country we reside in. We've just entered this space where there's a lot of divisiveness and push-pull between different peoples, and this is kind of the shadow of stepping into Aquarius and the Aquarian Age, where we're being called forth into accepting a new layer of being one species. We are being called to accept and feel in to what the hive mind really means. And while that has many positives, where we start to think about the good of all, we start to think about the good of the planet, we start to recognize that we aren't just these individual units and that we should only focus on our own good, but rather we should be sharing efforts and energy to better life for all beings. That is so beautiful. And yet the shadow of it can be, we decide that we know what's right and we attempt to coerce or convince everyone else to jump on board, regardless of where they might be in their own personal journey of expansion or awareness or experience. And thereby we are not allowing them to have their own experience and coming to and reckoning, right? And so we have this energy. The word that came forward is light. We're all being called forward to shine, to express ourselves, just as I am expressing myself here with you today. And that is so exciting. It's so alive in all of us to want to share and see and be seen. And at what cost, right? And so the supporting cards that came, we have the Four of Cups. This card, you'll recognize it. It's been coming up from all of last year and this year many, many times. It's the card of grief. It's the card of coming to terms with what is, the losses, the things that have had to be put on hold, the normalcy that had to be displaced for a time. But I want to bring back that it's rooted in the 4, which is the most stable of numbers. It's grounded, it's secure. It gives us the foundation so that we can rise to the top of the pyramid and actually find our sacred truth. We are being asked this week to really feel in. And if we feel anger or resentment or frustration or divisiveness towards another being based on their opinion or choice around things, we're being asked to come home and say to ourselves, okay, I'm feeling triggered by another's truth. What is that reflecting within me? What is within me that needs to be grieved, that needs to be looked at, held, released? Am I being triggered because I used to be in that person's shoes and now I've changed? Am I being triggered because they are walking a path that is so much different than my own and it makes me question myself? This is a week where we have an opportunity to look at those flare-ups that often occur when we're in Aries energy, when we're in the spring and feeling a little crunchy or uncomfortable with the erraticness of the season. It's a time to come back and say, okay, what is this reflecting to me that I can look at? Because this is where we have the real power. Internally, in our hearts, in our minds, in our own sacred space. This is where we have the power to have and effect the most change. We shift in ourselves and it begins to ripple outward. We begin to make different choices. We connect to different people. We create different communities. This is where our agency and our self-sovereignty lives. And we connect and contact this most easily when we're able to feel our feelings and navigate them and recognize that they're our own, and to move through them and feel them and nourish ourselves through the process rather than projecting our discomfort onto those around us. And the advice card, well, we had 2 advice cards really that came forward for us to move this week with this sensation. We first have the 6 of Pentacles. This is a really grounding card. It's, again, another stable number. And in particular, it speaks to generosity. Being generous with the benefit of the doubt. Being generous with our words and our language. and how we speak of others and how we interact with others. It's the balm of the heart. It's the card of compassion and taking things slowly and recognizing that when we feel feelings, it's first our job to caretake ourselves before we can help others. So in this week, if things become uncomfortable, can we also turn this Six of Pentacles energy inward and nourish and be generous with ourselves? That's advice card number 1. And advice card number 2, we got nature. And the card speaks very directly to the healing capacity of nature, how just being outside, being with our feet on the earth, hearing birdsong, even simply taking in pictures or media of wildness has a direct effect on our nervous system and allows us to release fear, release discomfort. It allows us to take that deep breath, to be in these bodies even when we are uncomfortable, and to help us reorganize the mind and reorganize the way in which we take in and experience our lives. It also really speaks to the fact that nature is a great mystery. It is a huge, huge, chaotic, orderly web of connections that our minds simply cannot fully fathom. We're quite smart, and we have little glimpses of the truth, no doubt. I don't question that. And I know that the truth is much, much larger than any of those tiny glimpses that we have, whether we're speaking of science or religion or farming practices. We have little bits of the puzzle, but we as a collective don't fully understand all the interworkings and interweavings of how life actually happens and how this planet supports itself. That's just simply the truth. If we had full inner knowing of those things, we wouldn't have the environmental issues that we are currently facing as a collective. We, as human beings, are the change makers. We come in and we create and we destroy. We make things shift at an exponential level. Perhaps that is our purpose. I don't know fully. But I do know that we will get along more easily and easefully with our environment if we take in the truth that we don't know everything, and we allow ourselves the space for curiosity and for mystery to be at the forefront of all of our decisions as we move forward on this planet where we as human beings are taking up more and more space and crowding out other life forms and their ability to live easily on this planet. So that is the message for this week. It feels very rich and nuanced and tender. If that speaks to you, if I'm reflecting for you what you are experiencing thus far this week, please feel free to leave a comment below. Let's have a conversation about what this feels like to come into our own truth and perhaps not be in alignment with those around us, and that's okay. That we need everyone's opinions and we need everyone's points of view in order to keep things balanced and keep us from moving into that shadow side of domination and control rather than emergent thinking through a collective where all voices matter. I hope that this message serves you well. I hope that you have everything that you need. If you would like to share space with me, I do have some appointments still available the 3rd and 4th week of the month. And I am also encouraging you, if you enjoy my content and the messages I offer, please consider checking out my Patreon. For less than a cup of coffee each month, you can receive a more in-depth reading of the month, the full moon, the dark moon, as well as getting some really great discounts on the other services and courses that I offer. So if my work speaks to you, please engage with me a little further. I invite you to join the Joywork Collective and see what's going on Patreon. Until next Monday, take good care, and we will see you then.